Thank you.
Turned on the recording and we're ready to start.
Perfect. I am chairing this meeting because Renee had a conflict and Melinda isn't feeling well. I believe Melinda's joined us online or will join us online. But I will be chairing. Luckily I have a script, so it's really easy. But I'm calling the meeting to order. It is 9:04. Our first item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anyone in the room or online who would like to provide public comment at this time? I don't see anyone. Thank you. So we will move on to the next item. That's member updates, discussion and member updates. Do we have any members who would like to provide an update or anything they want to share with the group relevant to their work or our work?
Hi, it's John Epstein. I'd just like to say, a couple of weeks ago, I attended the presentation for the budget with the commissioners and the board of directors of the Housing Authority. And I just wanted to compliment the staff. After the presentation, the commissioners and the board was very complimentary of the presentation. They specifically called out that in the past, lots of times the presentations have just been very number focused. And this one, while it dealt with numbers, also dealt with a greater housing authority and what they've been doing and what their future forward-looking mission is and what they want to achieve. And it passed very smoothly, the new budget. So I realized, since I was in attendance, I just wanted to let the advisory committee know that the staff and the presenters were all very, they got very good compliments from the board of directors. So I just wanted to pass that on because I thought that was worth noting.
Great, thank you, John. Any other updates? Okay, we will move on to our next item. That is approval of the minutes from April 25th, 2024. BNF provided those minutes in email. So I would like to request a motion to approve it's the May minutes, the May 23rd, 2024 minutes. I have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Perfect. Who has made a motion? Do I have a second? Dave has seconded. We'll have a vote on that. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed to approving the minutes? What is on? Perfect. Minutes are passed. Next, we've got the executive director's report. So with that, I will hand it over to Molly Rogers.
Good morning, everyone.
All right.
Happy June. Happy Pride Month. In honor of Pride Month, I just want to take a moment just to elevate the importance of using our pronouns. Do you feel comfortable? I use she, her pronouns. So just put that out there. I also wanted to let you all know we have yet another new member of our management team who's just started literally a minute ago. Every month, I feel like we get to introduce new people, and I'm just so excited to be able to introduce our real estate manager, Lisa Barone. But before that, I'll hand it over to Jill.
Oh, thank you, folks. And thank you, Molly. For the record, I'm Jill Chen. I'm Assistant Director of the housing portion, I guess. And I grabbed Lisa and told her to please come early because today is a great meeting for her to introduce herself to the Housing Advisory Committee. And Lisa, I'm gonna ask her to speak. She has just moved up from the Los Angeles Irvine area, and she has decades of experience in affordable housing. And we are so thrilled to get her before the other folks in our metro region, i.e. my former employer. So Lisa, please. And by the way, I should also let you all know, there's been some changes within the development team, and we're going to be implementing those changes, and we'll let you also know because I think you might know Andrew Crafton. He has left and gone to Clackamas County as their development manager. So we got Lisa, and we're moving some places around, and we'll also be talking a little bit about some of the development work we're going forward with. But without further ado,
Perfect, thank you. Well, I'm thrilled to be here. We flew up on Tuesday, 2 adults, 1 teenager and 2 cats on the plane. So, I'm glad to be in a nice calm, office environment after that. My background really includes, working in local government, Santa Monica and Irvine for, about 13 years total. And then also, for a variety of, a couple of different real estate developers and also interning with NEF, mostly in the nonprofit space. And then prior to that, just 10 years in the social services arena, healthcare, homeless services, family services, childcare, as a fundraiser prior to affordable housing. I like to joke around that I didn't think social services fundraising was part of that. Try to look at housing. So pleased to be here.
Thank you. Actually, if we wouldn't mind, just for Lisa's sake, just to go around at all the members, we'll get time for staff, but maybe the advisory committee members, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves. Go around the
Starting with me,
members.
I'm Ryan Kane with Pinnacle Architecture.
I'm Bruce Dickinson, retired and a committee member for about 1.5 years.
Dave Bachman at Cascade Management.
Do we want to jump online?
Melinda Bell, resident participant for the HAC committee.
Hi, I'm John Epstein. I'm retired, former banker with Wells Fargo Bank. Probably historically, I might have banked some of the organizations you worked with in Southern California.
Narendra Sehgal, retired and member of the Housing Authority. Volunteer.
I'm Haley Purdy. I'm architect, working in a lot of affordable housing projects and transitional housing.
Dina Feldes, Transcending Hope, the social service seat.
Great. Just a quick flag. We actually do not have HAC next month, but I believe BNF is going to speak more to the HAC calendar a little bit later. So everyone has a lovely 4th of July time off and have some time for summer break. But a lot has happened since we've all seen each other just even last month. There's always something that we're keep embarking on all the work. I got to on June 13th, I got to see Haley. We got to celebrate the opening of Cedar Rising, which is another Metro Bond project that came out of the Washington County allocation. It's going to be home for 81 families focused on from the Latinx and the Asian communities. It's being developed by Bridge Housing with the service provider Hacienda CDC. So a phenomenal partnership. And I have to say, big shout out to that team. They're 100% occupied already.
Wow.
So rarely do we do openings after everyone has moved in, but I think that's actually extra exciting because we actually get to see people who are whose lives have been transformed by the housing we built. We also contributed to that project using our Housing Production Opportunity Fund through the Office of Community Development. It's been a great resource for that what we call last gap funding to get you to that finish line. But it's a good reminder of how we are doing on our overall Metro Bond goals. Cedar Rising is the second affordable housing community we've done in Aloha. And I'm happy to share that we're going to have 2 more funded projects that are going to open later this year. So that means we only have 2 remaining left that need to get to financial close and get under construction out of the total 12 that we have funded. We're also still on track to surpassing all of our Metro Bond goals. I believe the original goal for the bond was 814 for Washington County. And we are on track to exceed that by 18% or 958 total. So it's a great opportunity for us to leverage other resources and to meet all the others. So cool, way out there. John already kind of beat me to the punch, but I'm happy to share that we did have a unanimous passing of our housing authority budget just a couple weeks ago by the board of directors of the housing authority. I just want to also shout out and give a big thanks to John Epstein and this committee. I will say after last month, we did a big some adjustments. We really kind of thought through more of the visual effect of a lot of our charts and slides of how we show a complicated picture of a ambitious budget, but one that has some great things that are embarking on a very big journey for us next year, but also some challenges that we're facing. And I believe it was well received. And thank you, John, for joining us and helping co-present. I also want to thank Michael Clark, our fabulous Assistant Director of Finance, who's been on the job, what, 6 months now? 7?
Almost 8.
Almost 8?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this should be old habit now. And Fahad Kazi, who has been on the job 1 year. Yeah, I love accounting people. They're like, they're very precise on their times. So we all went through a budget process together for the first time. And I gotta say, it's a wonderful way to really completely understand the inner workings and the overall capacity and all the various work we're doing with our programs. So I just wanted to highlight a few things that really did illustrate the huge undertaking we've all gone through in the last 5 years as a housing services department and as a housing authority in terms of huge significant growth, particularly in our development activities and our preservation work. We've more than doubled our employee count in the last just a few years. We've moved to a whole new building, which now we have since outgrown our new building. And we have an entirely new executive team. And so because this was really our first year, we really wanted to embrace the value of empowerment, especially with our managers, for them to really understand all their program areas, the revenues, the expenses, their staffing levels, where we can be making some alignments across teams. How can we be thinking about what the next year is going to look like in terms of projects and goals? And this is the first time we've introduced key performance measures within our budgets. The county is also trying to figure out the best way to tell that larger story as well. So we were a little bit ahead of the curve, and we will continue with that work. We really did want to foster through that process. It's not just the budget itself, it's how you get to the budget. And I just wanted to really applaud Fahad and Michael of supporting those, what I believe are values of collaboration, transparency, and empowerment. So kudos to everyone here. The theme really was stabilization, though, I will say, because we have plenty of work and initiatives, as Bruce and I were just talking, because we're just building up our institutional knowledge now, really from the ground up. It's really important that we take some time to build out those teams and lay that foundation that's going to be strong for future years. So we are continuing to prepare for quite a bit. I mean, we're going to hear a little bit later around a lot of our development work, preservation work, and building out even more shelter capacity, transitional housing, and more work that shores up where we see gaps in the region. And we hope to also figure out ways to leverage Medicaid, the fee waiver, what we call the 1115 waiver that has been embarked across different states, including Oregon, figuring out ways to bring those resources to bear within our homeless services program so that we can leverage that with either case management and rent assistance supports for our formerly homeless or at risk of homeless populations. And finally, we are really close to launching our new vision statement and mission statements. Thank you for all your input and all that. We just finalized all of our wordsmithing because that process has to also go through. We have to go through all the right sort of words that make sense. And then how does it sort of smooth out in terms of how you talk about it. So I believe we're gonna be rolling that out. Is it August, Melissa?
July.
July and August, so very, we're more to come very soon on all that front. So thanks everyone who contributed to the budget. Really, I feel very good about how we're gonna proceed and set the course for the next year. So very quickly on the legislative front, but I also want to share with you that that a lot of the work we've done here in Washington County, particularly the folks who are in this room, have been really have worked on an initiative called Project Turnkey, where we have had resources to acquire hotels or motels and then convert them into either shelter or transitional housing or actually permanent supportive housing as well. It's really being elevated at a national level with the work, with a new proposed legislation from Congresswoman Bonamici, who is actually calling it Project Turnkey Act. She's asking for $1 billion to be able to use a lot of these models that we've done here and broaden it into more of a national model to do this work even better. It's served us very well to be able to move quickly to get units, beds, rooms, however we want to call it, but a place for people to go, and particularly families and people with disabilities. It's been a great model for us to then have sort of food service down below and immediately build out all the services people need. So much so that we now needing to build out places for people to go after that. Congresswoman Bonamici, she facilitated a roundtable on June 6th that did include our very own Jess Larson and our chair Harrington from the county and many few other Washington County providers who got to showcase how we've been able to do this 4 times in Washington County, 3 with Project Turnkey money, but we actually have 200 more essentially units or rooms or beds that we didn't have before to address our homelessness crisis through this model. So it's great to see Washington County leading the way on that front. And of course, we will lend our support to the Congresswoman to work on this important legislation. Hopefully get some traction in DC. We can always say and be continue to be that inspiration and we will continue to pursue more hotel acquisitions for either transitional or permanent housing. And with that, I'm happy to open up to any questions.
Molly, just real quickly, the funding on Project Turnkey is federal funding. Did I hear that right?
Mm-hmm. No, but Bonamici's proposal would be federal funds, $1 billion in federal funds, if it passes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But Project Turnkey, the original Project Turnkey came from, well, I know it was managed by the Oregon Community Foundation, but I believe the state money from Oregon Housing Community Services.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, okay, we will move on. We don't have any resolutions or action items today. So the next item on the agenda is staff liaison update. So I'll turn it over to Bianette, who's joining us online.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm going to share my screen real quick. All right, so just wanted to share some engagement opportunities that are aligned with also our scheduling as the Housing Advisory Committee. So I'll update y'all a little bit about that. So obviously we don't have our usual meeting in July because of summer break, which enjoy your summer break. In August, in lieu of our advisory committee meeting, we are asking our advisory committee members to attend our listening sessions. So we have 2 listening sessions happening in August. One is virtual, which is more of a provider session. So our community partners who are doing the work or are somehow involved in the work will be able to participate in a virtual setting, which is our Housing Supportive Services Network meeting that happens already. So it's a way for folks to hear what we are as an authority doing and also have their input heard on what our priorities are and what they feel could guide our work. And then we have the August 19th in-person session, which is more public session. So that's at the Beaverton Library in the evening. So this is more of a broad public session. So those who, are care about housing in their community or are advocates in their community or just want to learn, it's a way for them to get involved. So just wanting to share that information. And like I said, we expect advisory committee members to participate. Also the Homeless Solutions Council, which is the sister advisory body of this group, will also be participating. And we hope the chairs of our both bodies will be part of sharing out of the work that we're doing, because I think y'all are doing great work, and I think our community members should know that. Maybe our public comment section of the group of the meetings may go up after these sessions. So, if there's a lot of interest in that, so that could be exciting. And yeah, we'll share more information as that goes out. And then obviously we have our housing forum, which is something we do every year. We do it in the fall. It's a way for us as the Housing Authority to share what's happening in the broader scope of housing. And in the past, we've had different opportunities, local leaders, state leaders, panel discussions around some of the work that we're doing on the ground. And right now we're doing that outreach and engagement to y'all and the Solutions Council to kind of hear what y'all have to say, and we'll kind of go over some of the poll responses that I shared out with y'all. But obviously outreach is we're expected of the advisory committee, input and planning, opportunity for you to share about your role and what you do as a committee, and hopefully some light participation and support during that housing forum. We do have a date, November 22nd, at Wingspan. We're still figuring out what the timing will look like, but just putting that as a placeholder in your calendars. And yeah, as soon as we get more information, we'll definitely keep you posted. And then, yeah, just wanting to share a little bit more about what y'all shared. And if y'all have questions, we can have that at the end. But let me share our poll because y'all had lots of great feedback. I want to put that here. Let's see. Okay. Presenting mode. Okay, so I sent out a poll to the group, which thank you so much for folks who were able to participate. And if you still want to share your information, that's fine too. We can resend that link out, but feel free to share more input if you have any. But it feels like a lot of people were able to share their thoughts. This poll was also sent out to our Homeless Solutions Council. So they were also able to participate, and it seems like we had a lot of really great input. We asked about what topics or themes interest you as topics for the housing forum, and it seems like there was a lot of great interest around permanent supportive housing and affordable housing development and behavioral health, which I thought was really interesting. And great that we're starting to kind of be interested in specifically around PSH and behavioral health. I think that was a big thing that kind of popped up for us for this round, which is exciting. And obviously, as a housing group, I feel like, affordable housing development is a big interest of this group. So I'm not surprised there. So good to hear about some of that. And then we talked a bit about what are things that interest you as a group, and going more into specific, which I thought was really interesting. I feel like youth-focused solutions, that was something that the Homeless Solutions Council brought up, and I think there's great advocates on that advisory group who care about youth-focused prevention. And transitional housing, obviously for permanent supportive housing. How do we support folks who are being evicted due to circumstances like violence, substance use? And then there's around what are the needs of some of the providers. I'll just kind of go a little bit more detailed to understand what their needs are, what support we as the Housing Authority can do to create more housing and shelter and services. And then there's also moving people from home insecurity to home ownership, community services partnerships, centralized access website and or resource center. I think this has come up a lot in my own engagement around how do we centralize some of the work that we're doing. I think this is something that I hear a lot. So I'm not surprised that people are saying that. Homeownership, obviously, emergency mental health services and shelter for substance abuse. Once again, I think behavioral health has popped up a lot. So yeah, just wanted to share that. Improve and create stability for residents, strategic initiatives that work, improve housing outcomes. So looking at the long term. So yeah, lots of great information. I really appreciate y'all's input around this because this will be very helpful for us as we're planning, as we're kind of going around with planning. And then we talked a little bit about who interests you. Obviously very broad, but state leaders was the top, state and nonprofit leaders, which is great. It's great that people care about what the work that we're doing on the ground with our nonprofits. And then more specifically, talking about who those providers are, Salvation Army, Bienestar, Community Action, like nonprofits, obviously specifically to behavioral health, and then members from the governor's office. So great input. I'll stop sharing. So yeah, thank you so much for those who were able to share. I really appreciate it. It really helps us kind of stay focused on what matters to the folks that are in the room. But yeah, if anybody wants to share more or want to add on to anything that they were able to add to the poll or didn't get to add, I would love to hear that. Or if any questions from any of our engagement work that we're doing, I happily welcome that now.
All right, so I'm always speaking, but this is John. I'm curious if there's a way, I saw a lot of votes for nonprofit speakers, which actually I didn't check, but that's fine. But I'm curious if maybe if you go that route, because there's also votes for social service and sort of a full spectrum of care from transitional to permanent. I don't know if we have any providers out there who do the whole spectrum. I would have a transitional, have permanent, and then also provide social services. Or maybe it's a complement of multiple nonprofits, but someone who can maybe speak to, and this is just me speaking, but for the audience, kind of speak to how you deal with the whole spectrum. Since there's an interest along the spectrum, I mean, that's just a suggestion. I don't know if someone could speak to that or not, but I don't know, that might be of interest.
Well, funny enough, we, as the Housing Authority, do the whole spectrum.
No, I know you do the whole spectrum, but I think we're looking for maybe other models, right?
Yep.
You have a model and maybe someone else does the model a little differently because part of it is learning from others. So, right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's just,
I love that.
You can do my suggestion what the heck you want and throw it in the trash can, but I'm just saying for comments. So there it is.
No, I love that. That's very helpful. And I think that's great for us to kind of think about as who's in the conversation.
A little focus on the continuum of care is, John, was that kind of sum it up?
Yes.
Yeah. I was just gonna add that Union Gospel Mission, they have something similar to that in their treatment program. After you complete treatment, you can stay there for another year and go to school, or find a job or do a combination of both. And they also obtain some apartments that you can transition into for 2 years, I believe. It was 2 years. And I think you pay 30% of the rent. I'm not sure, I don't work there anymore, but that's how it was when I left there 2 years ago. So they had like a model that you could, people that were seeking, mothers that were seeking treatment, were able to transition into housing that way also.
Good to know, Melinda. Thank you for sharing that.
I just wanted to share that there's been a lot of discussions with Washington County with the NAR Accredited Recovery Residents Alliance. I'm as a housing provider in Washington County for persons who identify with substance use disorder and or mental health. We do here at Transcending Hope, we do aid and assist, if anyone's familiar with that. And we also do community living substance use disorder housing with supports, transitional housing. And out of our 22 locations, only 9 are rentals, the rest are fully funded. And I'm part of this nationally accredited recovery residents committee. We meet monthly and we all have a specialty. So, you know, there's like Iron Tribe who works specifically with DHS and families. And then you have Free on the Outside, which has housing for persons who have to register as sex offenders. And then there's Transcending Hope, who's doing aid and assist and SUD. I mean, there's a multitude of different providers in that committee that provide transitional housing. And we're all held to a set of standards because we're nationally accredited. And I do believe that the county is looking at doing an RFP so that we can start providing partnership and providing some supports in that way. But there's a bunch of us. And it's a gap that has continued, especially aid and assist. Usually people who are in the Oregon State Hospital will be discharged to the streets. We have 4 locations now in Washington County, and we just opened a location in Clackamas County, and now they're being discharged to us, and it's very successful. Like our people are working and we're transitioning them into more permanent housing.
Thanks, Dina. That's really helpful. Yeah, we want to elevate all the great work that's happening on the ground, but also like, what is it that's missing, and what can we continue to kind of support and bring to the table? So I'm kind of actually really excited how some of the things that popped up from some of the conversations that we've been having, and what interests the group. And yeah, I'm very excited about that, of like who we can bring to the table.
Since you're just brainstorming, you know, maybe a thing is a moderator and a panel, right?
Mhm.
And if you generate good questions. I'm here in Oregon. I mean, so the National Equity Fund has an office in Portland, which can give you a national perspective. Maybe they have someone there who's doing outreach. Then maybe they get someone on, you know, you got Network for Oregon Affordable Housing doing permanent financing on permanent housing. You know, maybe Dave knows somebody, Bachman knows somebody from the property management standpoint, and then you can find someone else from transitional housing or something. And I don't know, maybe through the questions, you force them to kind of talk to each other, how they transition between themselves and moving people. So I think you're just trying to brainstorm here with ideas. I'm going to pick 1 or 2. So I'm just, you know, maybe that's a way to do it instead of one speaker, 4 or 5 people up there with a good moderator that can pull good information out of them on how they flow back and forth and doing their skill sets of each other. And then if you maybe get somebody who has even a national perspective, they can maybe say, oh yeah, but in Seattle, I'm seeing it this way, or in Denver, I'm seeing it this way. Have you ever thought about that? I don't know.
Yeah, love that.
There's one other thing I want to mention, and I'll get the information to the committee. We're holding our first ever Oregon NAR housing conference on November 15th at the DoubleTree. And there will be national speakers there. it would be a good opportunity for Washington County Housing to attend. So I'll get some information to Jess or someone.
Yes, love that,
Yeah.
Dina.
Yeah.
Would love any information that you have that could be helpful for us. And I love the ideas, and that's why y'all are here to support us. So I appreciate it. And yeah, we're taking everything. So love hearing it. And if you still feel like you want to process this and share some info out to me, you still can, even though we're kind of done with the poll, but would love to continue hearing some more ideas as we're kind of going into the planning. But yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate all that. And yeah, if there's any questions that pop up for y'all, let me know, but I'll be around. I think that's it for me.
Perfect, thank you, Vienna. So everyone has Vienna's contact information, so if you have other things you want to add or ask, feel free to reach out to Vienna. Next, we've got Jill Chen with an update.
Thank you, Melissa. And Jacob, would you mind putting up the slides?
Yep.
This is just a quick update about the Section 18 disposition that some of you may have been here for a few months ago about our Section 18 disposition, as well as some of our development projects. I'm just gonna go by really, really quick. Because both of these have sort of been part of our budgeting as well because of the public housing aspects as well as our affordable housing development. So you've seen this before. What is Section 18? And how is it related to our public housing? And this is all about the housing agency's request for demolition and selling of the properties that are essentially HUD funded, both for capital and operating. Next slide, please. We have 244 units. Reasons for disposition, you guys have seen it all. It's mostly single family homes. It is very old, needs a huge amount of capital, lack of stable funding, lack of operational efficiencies, financially difficult. We mentioned this in our budget. And part of it is operationally impossible to maintain and sustain. Next slide, please. Again, quick survey of where the projects are, the location, mostly in the Loa, which is also reflective of much of our housing, but it's spread out and it's a very difficult portfolio. As you can see, it goes all the way to the west and the south. So it's a very scattered portfolio. Next slide, please. A quick update on the timeline. You have seen this is a long process. When we started in 2019, we finally got HUD approvals in 2023. We are currently in the process of ongoing discussions with HUD about what we can and can't do. They had given us certain approvals that was not in line with our intentions. So we've had to go back and forth and do some negotiations. We have issued a second notice to our residents, and this is all part of the initial process to do the disposition. The second notice was a first required step. We're in the process of referring, as part of the notice, these homeowners to services from Vienna-Star, who is one of the partners, for some home ownership and sort of mortgage readiness advisory. We're also in the process of going to start hiring a relocation consultant, and this is not just a consultant to sort of help you move your things, but it is really a consultant who's familiar with tenant protection vouchers and what they can and can't do with those, especially in light of what HUD is going to allow them. We're also in the process of consolidating the resident information as well as the unit information, so we can then collect what has the tenant said they want to do, what is the time frame in terms of when this particular unit is going to be sold, what's their timeline. So we're not, you can call it, we're lining it up so that there's an orderly process so they can know and we can know. And then it's the plan and the setup for the selling. The goal is that by the end of 2026, we would have completed the sale of all the units. The goal is not to have all 60 go into the market. We don't want to depress the market. We don't want to make anyone concerned about so many single-family homes being sold, but at the same time, an orderly process. Next slide, please. As you've seen before, priority one is to sell to existing residents in these units. These are the ones who will be notified. Priority two is selling to our community-based organizations, local partners. We're committed to preserving affordability. And the third is to general market. After all those, priority one and priority two have decided not to purchase. Next slide. Proposed use of proceeds. You've seen this slide also before. It is essentially to continue the goals of affordable housing, also to improve the quality of some of these units that are in the portfolio, and to ensure that we will leverage these funds for future development and acquisition of affordable housing, with a goal of at least a 1-to-1 replacement. Next slide, please. Any questions or comments? That went by really, really fast. So I wanted to make sure you guys had lots of time for any questions. I did also want to say, we are in the process of looking for, and it's actually, the posting has already gone up for Section 18 coordinator. The posting went up, I believe, last Saturday. We currently have one of our development coordinators, Melissa Daly, in that role, who's working on making sure we can still move this forward, even as we are in the process of hiring the coordinator. And maybe Melissa will join as the permanent Section 18 disposition coordinator. And she's working very closely with Matthew Fullen, who is the new manager of public housing, the former Will Seals. And they are working together to make sure that the residents are taken care of and that the sale of the units are in an orderly fashion. Questions, comments? Like I said, we went through that really, really fast.
Jill, just one question. As best case, when you dispose of, the people get to buy the unit, great. Does that release an expense burden from us by having them? Okay, so there's a dual benefit.
It is a dual benefit, and what we have found also is that housing authorities throughout the country, many of them are finding the same thing we are, which is management of the single family homes or the small plexes are extremely difficult.
Gotcha.
Operationally, 44 years, some of these buildings really just need rehab.
Right.
But it's also hard to manage, anywhere from, lawn mowing to roof repairs to interiors,
Sure.
and they're all not the same. So it makes it hard to have efficiency.
Just to hone in on one point, Jill, and you are making, there's really three overarching benefits. First, there's the actual sales proceeds that will come back and help pay for future development and preservation work. The second is it reduces a deficiency, an operational deficiency in the agency around the upkeep. And three, it brings in additional vouchers for our community, which is always a good thing. So you actually get additional, what they call, it's like Section 8, but it's a form of it, tenant protection vouchers. Obviously, the downside is those families have to move if they can't purchase them.
Right.
So, sorry.
I appreciated when Will first showed this to us, that the thought that was going into the homeowners and the effort that was getting put into it. And I understand you're working with them and letting them know what HUD funding is out there for them to be able to purchase. Are you also helping with the renovation, like what funds are available to help renovate the properties once they have purchased them?
We have been talking with Shannon Wilson's team, which is the community development folks. There is a home repair program that Shannon runs. There's also a small down payment assistance. However, those are not necessarily directly channeled to this program. So it's a depending on which, some of them are working with different nonprofits, and different nonprofits also have some down payment assistance loans. So it's a bit of a combination of trying to cobble the down payment assistance as well as then getting the home repair. we are also seeking to get some EPA funds for our existing portfolio of public housing, and that will upgrade some of those things like gas stoves and make it
Right.
electric and do some of them. It's not a major rehab, but at least some of the tinkering inside to make it a little bit more habitable.
And what percentage is it of current tenants are considering purchasing the home?
I'll be blunt, when we looked at the numbers, we didn't want to, it is not, based on my understanding of talking with folks like Habitat or Proud Ground and some of the other sort of home ownership focused organizations, the desire has always been that you do not want to burden a very low income household with a mortgage and then taxes and utilities because of potential risk. Their rule of thumb had been that folks under 45% AMI should really consider not owning because it is such high risk.
Yeah.
Because some of these things, such as property tax exemptions, any, say, roofing bill or anything like that could really harm them long term.
Yeah.
Based on what we've seen, I think it's probably less than 20%, so maybe a dozen are going to be eligible. I mean, are going to be actually able to afford. Yes, Nahendra?
Oh, thank you, Jill. This was a little bit of an what if scenario question, if you will. So given that we have the history of the Title 18 housing, the overall money spent on capital plus the operational cost over the past couple of decades, if you were to do a what if analysis on just like homeowners do rent versus buy, has the housing authority done a build versus rental subsidy analysis to say which one works out to be more cost efficient from a taxpayer perspective, where, is it more cost efficient for the county to build housing and offer rental subsidies, or just pure rental subsidies and not get into any of the building?
That's a great question. We haven't done one directly here. And I'm sorry, I'm not yet on my 4th month. I'm almost done with my 4th month, but I will keep that in mind. One of the things that is, we're in the process of also trying to gather information about our portfolio of renters. We don't have as much data as we'd like to have. The renters in many of our units, at least I know this from the Portland Housing Bureau, the average AMI on that portfolio was more around 30% AMI. So and even as they're going into, say, a 60% rent regulated unit, they are frankly a little cost burden. But it's better than still market, right? So what we've seen is renters in general for these affordable housing units will likely be more low income than the homeowners, even those that are coming in from the affordable home ownership programs. So I don't know if there's a statistical study somewhere, but I would love to, be able to pursue what you're saying. And I think that's a great idea for maybe working with some of our research institutes on that. And so I can only say this is anecdotal.
Strategically looking ahead, I'd like to see that analysis to say, this is the right way of using taxpayer dollars, because this is the most efficient way of delivering housing, right? I just did the quick math on the 81 units. It works out to $440,000 per unit. And then you add on the operational cost to it. Even if you assume 30% AMI, how much rental subsidy alone on that principle, if you take just a average treasury rate of return, how much can you fund? And long term, because that has very little operational cost involved other than just managing the money flow, right? So I would love to see that part of the analysis done so that we can then say, hey, realistically, this is the best way for the county to spend the money, taxpayer money.
And I think, Narendra, in terms of whether or not it is rental support going forward to a tenant versus building a building for a tenant, you're absolutely right in that sometimes that careful consideration is that as we go into cost of construction being closer towards $500,000 per unit.
Mhm.
And if the county needs to pay for all of that, is that worth it versus rental support?
Yeah.
And we as a county actually haven't put up, that yet. It is one of the reasons we have been using sort of new construction is the ability to leverage, say, tax credits and debt. Whereas we can't leverage it if it's just straight up rental assistance. So therein
But
lies
tax
that.
credits also have, just to your point, right, tax credits also have an implication. When
Yeah.
you're offering tax credits, so it is money coming from someplace, right?
Yeah.
Revenue loss, a tax credit is a revenue loss, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Love to see that hopefully before the end of the year, so that in the next year's, strategic planning budget that can be incorporated, learnings from that can be incorporated.
Jill, we've had a little bit of press around this, correct? There was, I don't know if that was timed around the second notice. Was that what happened? The second notice went out and then,
That's fine. Yeah, it was timed around the board presentation, the presentation to the board, it was letting them know that we'd received approval and we were moving forward.
Yeah. So it wasn't quite, but we also presented it to the.
I wonder if there's an opportunity to get ahead of the next press event. It just, in a way that focuses on outcomes. I mean, I think it was mentioned, and in what I read, I mean, the issue of leverage, which is a completely appropriate thing to bring forward, was mentioned, but maybe there's an opportunity to really help kind of define on outcomes or what desired outcomes are.
Yeah, the struggle.
People in the success of multifamily, in the LIHDC program and things that the county's done. I mean, it seems like there's a broader opportunity to get ahead of the next event which is when people start moving out, which always is a human interest story, right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it would be good to be able to see, once the second notices have been out, we're waiting for these respondents to come back and see who might be interested. Based on our understanding of their incomes, we're thinking, if a quarter might be able to buy. And even that would be highly successful because we've been essentially creating some, you can call it independence and home ownership and wealth creation opportunities. But it's still quantifying those outcomes would be important.
Yeah, I'll say so even with that particular story, we had a number of residents that we had referred to that media outlet who are really actually supportive of this. We have a lot of residents who are really interested in moving out of their public housing unit. You have less, it's much more difficult to move when you have public housing than it is when you have a voucher. And so we had referred them a number of residents to talk to who are actually excited about this, which was kind of surprising, but when we called them, that was their response. And the media outlet was not interested in talking to them. We also really talked about that this is the right choice from a cost perspective. Media just sort of takes
Sound bites.
They tell the story they want to tell. It was really, really clear in that interview that she had a story she wanted to tell from the moment she sat down with me. So it's we've gone back and forth on this a few times. Do we get out ahead of it? Do we take the initiative? And is it worth the chance of media deciding that this is an opportunity to bite us? or do we just do our jobs and keep our heads down? So it's something that we talk about frequently, yeah.
But overall, the fact of trying to get ahead of some of these stories is important. And maybe even having that even called FAQ, so that both the residents and our own team know we don't have to go into that spin.
Yeah, I mean, in my very limited experience, with news media, I mean, the negative story or the human interest story about people losing their house, that's going to happen regardless, right? So if there's positive news or positive story behind it that we can help influence, I just think that would be great.
Yes.
It's an opportunity.
Especially if any one of them actually become a homeowner, that will, and if they feel comfortable with us sharing, we will broadcast that. But yeah, I feel a little bit split. I don't want to elevate someone's experience as they're going through a transition like this, that thank God it's child, but they deal with what they need to deal with without the extra. But we do have a couple, like Melissa said, a couple folks who want to tell their story about how they want to get to live wherever they want after this.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. And
Okay. Any other questions? If not, then we'll just go quickly into the development. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this because during our budget presentation last time, we talked about the development pipeline. Oops, you see it? It's in the same slides.
Yeah, it's just fighting for some reason. Here it comes, sorry.
at least it gets to figure out her new job at the same time.
There you go, the development pipeline. We showed you our development pipeline. And there you see, section 18 disposition is what we're in the process of doing. There are some other things that we wanted to just let you know. A couple of projects that we're moving forward on that we're excited about. Next slide, please. So the first one is our well-known project called Wood Spring. And this is one in which it's in Tigard. It's 172 unit. The Housing Authority of Washington County acquired it in 2023. In 2020, the building is
I apologize. It looks like we got disconnected and now we're back. Vienna, can you confirm that we're back?
Yes, y'all were gone for a second, but now you're back.
Okay,
okay.
I think I need to reshare my screen. I apologize. Is everyone able to see?
Yes.
And was this the slide we left off on?
Yep.
Sorry for the technical difficulties.
And so this one was in the news. It was very difficult for a number of the residents there. The residents had essentially pulled together and asked the county, the state, and everyone to help them maintain their living place. We were able to help them. The Housing Authority put in $4 million of equity from our corpus. OHCS put in what they call the push funding, which is for preservation. That was 25 million. And Banna Bank put in a 5-year bridge loan, interest only for 2 years of 20.5 million. So we were able to purchase the building and retain allow the residents to stay in the building. However, just because Hawk Housing Agent Authority purchased it, we were not able to put in the additional significant rehab that is needed. Based on our estimate, just a hard cost alone that needs to be put in is over 23 million. This is for roof repairs, gutters, you name it, sidings, windows, stairs, water heaters, the list goes on. It's quite expensive. It is a very nice, you can see the buildings. It looks highly livable. So what we are looking to do is go into seek 4% low-income housing tax credits and private activity bonds. With some additional housing authority funds, we will not need any other state funding or federal funding. And we are hoping to target this closing sometime in 2025. So this is a major resyndication. And we're glad this is needed because even as we originally purchased it, all the information from the original purchase indicated it needed significant rehab. Next slide, please. The next project is the Aloha 209 project. I think you probably have seen this one before. It's been, I believe, presented. This one is the final Metro bond project. Metro acquired the site in January 2024. You can see it's along Tualatin Valley Highway, sort of Alexander, and that site is that green blob over there. It is located near parks, shopping, schools, transit. We are targeting an 86 unit new construction, family focused building. And Metro did just complete their community engagement with Unite Oregon. We are going to apply for Oregon Housing Community Services LIFT, which is local innovation fast track funds, as well as 4% tax credits. And we are going to be looking to use all of our Metro bonds from Metro's direct allocation as well as our remaining. However, that's still not enough to fill in the gap. Like Mahendra mentioned, this is expensive production. It's mostly going to be 2 and 3 bedrooms. And it is looking for, versatile community space and child-friendly amenities. Next slide, please. In terms of timing, you had heard when Molly presented some of the challenges for our development. This is going to be sort of a long process only because we're going to be applying to Oregon Housing for funding, and this is the LIFT funds. Planning to apply next month. It's a multi-stage process where you go first through the top of the line is all the things that OHCS is now requiring us to do. The bottom is what Housing Authority will do. So their process at OHCS goes through the impact assessment. Then they go and analyze you for financial eligibility and their underwriting. And then only after these multiple steps are done, will you get a commitment of your private activity bonds and any sources of funding. And then ideally, after 6 months, you can reach financial close. So it's a little bit longer and a little bit less predictable than we originally had all anticipated, where we could just go in, ask them for money, ideally get awarded and just go full steam ahead. Here, we're going to take some risk where we're going to move forward with pre-development work and our contracts, everything from environmental surveys, all the work that is needed in order to get to that underwriting, get our tax credit partners lined up, all these contingencies lined up. We'll also have to go into negotiate our development, disposition and development agreement with Metro, the DDA, have everything lined up essentially in order to get to that final commitment from OHCS. And then only after that are we going to be able to get to financial structuring and document negotiations. So when we originally thought we were going to be able to do this sort of fast and furious, we're still trying to do fast and furious, but the timing is a little bit more unpredictable, both because of the lack of private activity bonds, but also because of the whole ORCA process. This is the first time they're coming out with an ORCA. And next slide. Any questions or comments? And I'm seeing you guys are looking at me like, oh my gosh, this is that process.
No, I was just gonna ask, that looks like the ORCA process that you're going through, and it's the first time the housing authority's going through that process, because it's a new process. It's the first time a lot of people are going through it. Just so everyone knows, even OHCS is a little bit like, we don't know what these next processes are gonna look like, and because they haven't gone through start to finish on anything yet, so.
And I will tell everyone here, OHCS has already told us pretty much that 2024 private activity bonds are done. They don't have any allocation. Based on what I'm seeing from the housing authorities and also what is already in OHCS's pipeline, most of 2025's allocation is going to be taken as well.
We're only a little bit over it, it's not like 5 minutes, so we're okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jill. Next on the agenda, we have Michael Clark.
Good morning again, everybody. Michael Clark, Assistant Director of Finance, he, him pronouns. I just want to also reiterate, thank you, John, for going to the board with us to do the budget presentation. I really appreciated you being there and sharing the perspective from HAC. Okay, so the agenda item is the third quarter financial update. We're still massaging and looking at what we need to do as the correct format for all of you. So let me share it here. I'm open to any type of feedback and how we can change how it looks going forward. So this goes through March of this year. And the first slide here is the top level. It's the housing authority in total for Washington County. So we can see we've got in each of these slides, we've got a budget columns over here where we've got revenues and expenditures. Revenues are in the green, expenditures are in the red. And then we've got our year-to-date actuals, and then what we're projecting to get through the end of the fiscal year. So as we can see, revenues are projected to exceed budget primarily due to our Woodspring tenant revenue and supportive housing services support for Heartwood Commons. On the expenditure side, they're trending higher too, and that's due to housing assistance payments, major repairs from fire and floods at several properties, and I'll go into more detail in a minute on those. Administration and overhead expenses, and then the debt associated with the Woodspring apartments. Okay, and then from here, we'll move into each of our programs. So we have each of the 4 programs that mirrors what we went over how we did the budget. So the first one is the Housing Choice Vouchers Program. And revenues are projected to be slightly higher than budgeted due to increased support in housing assistance payments earned and also our fraud recovery. On the expenditure side, those are trending to be slightly higher than budgeted, and this is due to housing assistance payments also, and then materials and services and contracts. So this one's pretty close to break even looking at it. On to the public housing program. Revenues are projected to be less than budgeted, primarily due to less HUD operating funds, and that's what we anticipated. HUD capital funds will be drawn down during this current quarter to support some of the operational needs. So you'll see that in the next quarterly update. And then expenditures are trending higher than budgeted, and that's due to adding 1 staff position throughout the year and the associated administration and overhead expenses. On to the development program. Revenues are projected to align with the budget, primarily due to the Patama partnership and other developer fees that we're receiving. Expenditures are trending significantly lower than budgeted, and that's due to vacancy savings that we have on the payroll side. And then the Foster Youth Independence Program is just starting up right now, so it's not fully implemented. So we have some less expenses in that area too. And then our last program is the Affordable Housing Program. And here the revenues are projected to exceed budget primarily due to the Woodspring apartment tenant revenue and supportive housing services support for our Heartwood Commons. Expenditures are trending higher, and that's due to some major repairs. So we had repairs from fire at Aloha Park. And unfortunately, we've had floods at the Ridge at Bull Mountain, Amberwood, Heartwood Commons, Valkyrie, and Holly Tree. So those have all added up a little bit. And then administration and overhead expenses and the debt associated with the Woodspring Apartments. Okay, questions?
Just a quick question. The
Sure.
big deviation there was because of kind of unique events versus, is that right? Did I hear that?
That was
Affordable
part of
housing.
it. Yeah, we've had fire at Aloha Park, and then there has been some flooding at several. Yeah. And then if you look at the difference here in the shading of the red, so we've got expenditures before interest, earnings, taxes, depreciation, amortization, and then the lighter red is all of that. So we've got the depreciation expense still associated with a lot of our properties that have moved over into the tax credit partnerships. Yeah, thanks, Bruce. So I went through that really fast, maybe a little too fast.
Not too bad.
Let me know how the format works for you for the information. Are there any additional questions? I try to do more visual. I've been told, I do too many numbers, so let me make it a little bit prettier.
Numbers can be pretty.
They can be pretty, yes.
So Michael, just at a high level, have I read this right? So at year end, this is through March, your year end is June. You're expecting an actual deficit at year end, right? I'm trying to remember what the first slide looked like. Was that the first slide? Is that right?
I can see you, John. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a deficit, and then we built that. We built that starting point into our new budget that we just presented, right? And the new budget has a deficit, but it's fine. I mean, we approved all that. But I mean, that's what this is basically saying, right? We're going to be slightly at a net loss compared to what we thought at a net gain. That was already the starting point for our new budget. And then this next year, due to some timing stuff, we're going to have a little more, we think, of a budget loss, which we've already gotten approved, which is fine. Is that right? Is that what this is all telling us?
That is right. Yes, John, as you're looking here at the year-end projections column, we can see the revenue there. And as far as for the operating expenses, we're covering that. It's just when we add on the interest, taxes, and depreciation, amortization, that pushes us over into a little bit of a deficit area.
And depreciation is a non-cash item, which is great. So really, so for me, it's going into the next year, just making sure that I know we've planned for a deficit, that as we're looking at these charts, that we're not blowing through making a bigger deficit than we thought, since we're coming off a prior year deficit also, right?
That is the goal, and I think a lot of it is covering the depreciation expense associated with our properties that are over in that tax, in the tax partnerships.
So I'm not saying this is bad. I'm just saying, I'm letting you know, my personal expectation going into our new budget year would be, as we're watching these charts, are we tracking okay to the deficit we projected for next year and not blowing through it and making it much bigger than we thought, eating through our cash? So I'm just letting you know that's what I'd want to understand as we do this on a quarterly basis going into the new budget process.
Okay.
Yeah, John, this is Bruce. That was kind of the basis of my question too. Right? What caused that deficit? Bad budgeting, bad operational efficiency, or unique events?
Right.
Which are always said to have unique events, non-recurring, one-time events that happen every year.
Right. So again, I'm not trying to micromanage you guys are on top of this. I just want to make sure from an advisory standpoint, we just don't get, we find that we have, we don't understand this and it's really like, you're $3 million off and none of us ever realized it or something. You know what I mean? A couple of $100,000 or $500,000 here or there based on the size of your budget's not a big deal. But we don't want to get to the end of the year and figure out we didn't realize through the presentation that you really missed it by $3 million. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's why it's important that we're having these quarterly
And this
check-ins,
does-
looking at this. I agree.
Yeah, these charts do that. So I'm reinforcing good, nice presentation for us to monitor this and talk about it.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, John. And I think it's allows us to monitor here, but also to look at how we're gonna fine tune our budget process, because it's gonna take probably 2 or 3 budget years before I think that we have a stronger understanding of what our business needs are here and that we're adapting to them. And so this is our first time through. I think that next year will be a lot tighter
Right.
on forecasting budget, and we're gonna get better at doing our year-end projections too. So there's always room for improvement and growth.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. Any other questions? So I'll move forward with this format if we think it's meeting our needs. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Michael. Next, we've got Nicole and Aaron, talking with us about the metro reform. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Right, well, maybe we'll start with introductions while the slide deck is pulled up, and thanks to DNF for taking that on for us. My name is Nicole Stang. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Strategic Initiatives and Relations Manager on the Homeless Services side of things, so I'm not with you all that frequently. I'm joined by Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin Doyle, the Senior Government Relations Manager for Washington County. I have a portfolio of departments that I support at the local, state, and federal level, including housing on all sides.
Yes, we're very grateful for Erin, and Molly will be supporting the presentation as well, but we'll go ahead and get started. I know Jess Larson was with you last month to give a bit of a brief update on what's been happening and the conversations that Metro's been carrying forward in regards to the lack of affordable housing resources for development with the near commitment of all the affordable housing measure bonds, and what is perceived as an excess in resources from the supportive housing services measure. Now, I want to underscore, highlight, put in all caps that perceived language. As you heard from Jess last month, the county has been proactive in budgeting the available resources as we've gotten new revenue forecasts. So while the revenue forecast for this unknown new funding source has increased, we've also been really proactive at strategically increasing our system of care to meet what we know to be unmet needs across the system. So we continue to budget with the direction of our board to the level of revenue that is forecasted. And one more note I'll make before we go to the next slide. The revenue forecast, as is mentioned, is very volatile. It's the first time we regionally have used an income tax revenue forecast, or revenue rather. And we're hearing from Metro that the forecast we received in the fall is actually a bit short. We anticipate there being a haircut of around 5 million for Washington County's budget. So obviously we don't have the actuals in quite at this moment. We should have more information on that, I believe, in August. I'm looking at Fahad, yeah, he's not indicating, but either way, it's a bit down from what was anticipated. Makes the importance of being careful in this conversation really underscores that importance to go slow and be careful. And just on the next slide, I want to remind us all what the driving force behind SHS. The Supportive Housing Service Measure was passed to address what are some very large gaps in our system, particularly for the need for permanent supportive housing for people exiting homelessness. Those wraparound assistance and support is really what it takes to get people stabilized into housing and able to stay and remain stably housed. So that's really the population A investments. Those are people that have been experiencing homelessness, will likely continue to experience homelessness if not for coordinated and a concentrated effort to help them remain housed. Population B is what I think a lot of us also see is homelessness. These are folks that might have periods of homelessness, but with a bit of assistance can get back on their feet. So the SHS goals provide resources for population A and support for population B to help people avoid homelessness and stop that inflow into population A. In the next slide, I want to again remind you what SHS has done for our community. We're getting updated numbers for 2024, so these are all slightly a bit higher than that marker, but the fact still remains because of SHS. Washington County has been able to build a system of care from scratch. So that includes the workforce to support people and getting them to shelter, then to housing, and then remaining stably housed. And it includes the necessary shelter beds for us to implement time, place, manner policies and help mitigate the impact of unsheltered homelessness on our housed neighbors and friends. And that shelter bed capacity is certainly a life-saving capacity as we see it. And then that last chart is really the ultimate goal, where our housing capacity essentially means number of vouchers or number of slots. So we've dramatically increased our ability to house folks experiencing homelessness because of the SHS measure. And the important thing to note here is that's really where the most expensive part of this all comes from. Keeping folks housed as rent prices are increasing, as other inflationary factors increases, is the driving force for our SHS budgeting. Next slide. And we talked at the top about the revenue forecast increasing from our initial 2020 estimate. Of course, as we all know, inflationary factors have been incredible since the pandemic. And we're seeing that, of course, both on the housing side, but also on the services side, as we think about hiring a workforce and retaining a workforce and paying a workforce a wage that can keep them stably housed as well. Those costs are increasing as well. So throughout kind of the life of the measure, we're getting to understand more the cost of what it takes to do what we committed to voters. And those costs are really driving a lot of our conversations. So at this point, I will turn over to Molly to walk us through the next part of the presentation.
Yeah, so you guys, I think we talked last month about this larger effort that Metro has convened over the last several months, including a whole stakeholder table to talk about potential ways to look at more revenues for affordable housing. The conversations have really frankly shifted to more really just a focus on SHS and also what they're kind of describing as a sort of reform package. So not just expanding the use of SHS for affordable housing, but some other sort of key structural changes to the measure itself that was passed just 4 years ago. So I wanted to elevate some of these to you and let you know some of from our perspective, some trade-offs around that, just to make you all aware. So on the surface, we believe it's a great thing to be able to have another revenue stream for affordable housing. But for us, it's also important that we are balancing those various goals so that we still stay focused on the original SHS goals around chronic homelessness. I'm sorry, go back. There you go. And then, so it's just finding the right balance. I think Narendra even asked it around what's the cost effectiveness around rent assistance versus actually building and having something over time, using sort of market conditions, market rate, homes, versus affordable and all the leveraging that comes with that. That's exactly what the kind of analysis we would need to do if we expanded that use. What's the right intervention and the most cost effective over time? The other piece of that is a proposal. This is primarily coming from the business community around some kind of rate reduction. So it is bringing in more than we originally forecasted. Of course, we do like to say we never anticipated COVID and inflationary factors at the same time. But there's, there's request from the people paying the taxes. Is there opportunity to start reducing it or what we call indexing it? So that's sort of at what threshold would the tax kick in when you file your taxes as a single filer or a household. There's been so Metro has been proposing, initially we're talking about how they've run their bond program. They actually administered the bond program pretty differently than how they've been administering the supportive housing services measure program. And so they they put a lot of the bond money with cities and counties or housing authorities plus cities. So there's been a lot of discussion with them around if there was, would there be a portion of SHS, if it was dedicated to housing, would it go to the same implementing partners, or would we change, or would we reduce the number of implementing partners because there's actually just not as much money? And so you could only have so many projects. Those are some of the things we've been talking to with them about. Our perspective is, since we are a housing authority and we're an SHS implementing agency, we can provide an integrated approach here in Washington County, and we do work with our cities very closely around citing those projects and doing that kind of work, because when you have the capital, you have to then come back to us as for the vouchers or the ARLA money and for the services. So it's a little bit more streamlined if we have that integrated approach. So, and then there's Metro Metro Council in particular is looking to have more oversight or more abilities to intervene if they feel like the counties have not been performing like they would like them to. You can imagine how well those kind of conversations have gone. And to counterbalance any sort of tax reduction, there's the idea would be the sunset would be expanded. There's chatter right now that could be 15 additional years, maybe even 20 additional years. Next slide. So for us, we've been working with our county commissioner and our county chair very closely over these several months around what we're calling guiding principles for us in our in this sort of negotiation effort. So this is a key thing. What I'm actually hoping is you guys can help kind of hone in on what particular guiding principles you think are most important, or if we're missing anything. Erin's going to talk a little bit about how, frankly, we're in the home stretch of what we think any sort of critical moments we may even have to have any influence of how this reform package will go. But for us, what's been really guiding those conversations, let's keep focusing on the original goals. Get first things first is what Commissioner Willie said. So if we're doing additional housing, let's make sure it's furthering those goals as opposed to creating housing for people who can't afford it. Let's continue relying on local expertise. So yes, we believe in regionalism, and yes, we believe that we have a regional housing issue, but we also believe our local connections and partners are best poised to be responsive to the folks who we see experiencing homelessness. This is also this is also a little bit different for Washington and Clackamas, where we have the housing authority and the inner homeless services under one umbrella. We also just want to recognize we're in year 3 of our initially a 10-year program, and our needs going to change. We've been in build up and ramp up mode. Nicole described it very well, how much we've increased our capacity with our partners. We haven't fully built out the system quite yet, so it's hard. It's been really difficult for us to really know what the right baseline ought to be because of all the various inflationary pressures. So our key message is, hey, don't just start carving out, making commitments that are really specific and really prescribed. We have no idea how our community's needs might change. Capital is a much bigger dollar amount at a one-time basis. That's really harder to do budgeting when you're doing year-end and annual sort of rent assistance or services contracts. So we need flexibility there. And of course, if we're extending the sunset, we're absolutely going to have, like, let's say we built our 5,000 supportive housing goals. Maybe from there we can start diversifying the kind of housing we want to build. And we are advocating for no change of our flow of funds and the funding allocation. Washington County right now gets 33% of the SHS measure. That's generally was the estimate of what the revenues of the tax base was coming from. And we're hearing that is not beyond it. That's not going to be considered in terms of formula redistribution, which we're grateful for. Anything you think we may be missing, or you guys all think are really important concepts for us. And Jacob, is it anyone on the raising their hand that I can't see?
If you see the Narendra, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, that was back on slide 4 where the question was about the increase in cost that seems to be much higher than the rate of inflation. Was that just a estimate or was that an actual number of increase in cost?
I think well, those original estimates were essentially really prior to 2020. So we're talking 2019, we're really talking about a 5-year change. And yes, rents have gone up higher than inflationary factor. It's not necessarily 1-to-1 ratio here. But we are seeing also issues around, say, pay equity with some of our social service providers have been able to retain and attract case management and other clinical services. We are seeing slightly higher than inflation.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, and this is Erin, and I do have a slide and I'll get to talk to it, but it's not a very interesting one, so it's fine. I think the other thing to keep in mind is that the initial estimates of 10,000 each bucket was done kind of with a lot of guesswork involved. And it's not just inflation, but when you build up the capacity, you lead to a lot of competition for a finite number of people doing the work, and we haven't built the workforce, which has been another principle, not just that we've seen impacting our ability to provide services in this realm, but also in behavioral health and other, like even our construction industries. Basically, when we put more resources into a system, we have a scarcity of capacity and we build that capacity out, and that gets us from guesstimates in 2020 or 2019 into actual costs, which really solidify things. And I'll also say that while there is a version of limitation on increase in rent over time in the state of Oregon, it is not just at an inflationary rate. There's more flexibility for folks. And as you see more vouchers come into the system, it complicates the economics, which I took one class in 25 years ago, so please don't ask me further questions. But so I think that when we did estimates of the revenue, at the same time, we assumed a lot of things about who would be paying into the tax system. We thought we'd be raising about $250 million. And that's also been proven to be another reason why when the state's economist gives estimates of the state's economy for a biennium, we end up with $5 billion kickers. It's tough work.
Shoot back to your slide.
Yeah, so if we can go to the second to last slide, the one with the timeline. So I don't know what was level set last month, so I'll just do my version of this, but the goal that Metro Council, so when we say Metro directed staff, it's the Metro Council directed their chief operations officer to bring back a recommendation for a potential ballot measure in November of 2025. And that's really set the pace, 2024, whatever year this is. This year's November ballot. And so in order to do that, they had to do a lot of things really fast and talk to a lot of different folks. So they created what they called a stakeholder table that had, and what they were looking for at the time, or what they said, was a solution for the drop off in funding of affordable housing funds. So this was supposed to be about how we could build more housing in the region, given that the bonding measure had kind of reached its stretch. As practically they say almost no money left or no money left, depending upon the day. But it's a really vital resource in this region, and we don't see backstopping coming from the state or the federal government anytime soon. So we need to continue to find financial resources to solve our own problems. As that stakeholder tables were set, they brought in some local government, but mostly focused on folks who are familiar in the affordable housing industry, and then some of the service providers for SHS and other interested parties who are constituencies and communities that really get impacted by housing policy and supportive services policies that have really been the focus of folks with lived experience, communities of color, other service providers, and the business community who tends to be the primary payer into an income tax process, but also represents a bunch of people who are interested in property taxes from time to time because they're real estate agents. And one of the first things that happened in those meetings is really kind of looking at the realm of possibilities for revenue raising, were sort of three things in their estimation. One, a new property tax, because it would have to be new, because it's not a renewal of the current bond. That can't be done until the bond authority runs out. To do a reallocation of the supportive housing services income tax dollars based on a perception of unexpected windfall collection. And the third is to do nothing and hope the state comes and backs us all up, which we've been told is unlikely to happen. So as that process went forward, it became really a conversation around reallocating supportive housing services dollars and what is the right way to approach that and who we should be servicing. So that process happened over 2 months with some very long afternoons spent in Metro's council chambers talking about feelings and options. And so from that, the chief operations officer for Metro has also done sidebar conversations, other outreach to folks that were less represented at the table, as the table had come to the conclusion that perhaps reorganizing the supportive housing services tax allocation was the option they'd like to see further pursued. On June 11th, she provided an update, which I believe is linked in the presentation if you are really excited to read more PowerPoint slides. But kind of saying, this is the direction that we've been headed, and here's what we're going to do next, and we're going to come back to you. And so in what they're doing next is an ongoing conversation with a select group of interested parties, including the 3 counties, the folks representing taxpayers, folks representing service providers, folks representing affordable housing interests, communities of color, and I've probably forgotten someone, a lot of Metro staff. And we're having conversations around all of those things, most of those things that Molly had talked about earlier about what was on the table at those conversations. But this is in preparation for an initial potential recommendation conversation with the Metro Council on July 9th, which will happen at a work session. So it's not a public opportunity for comment, but it is a public opportunity to learn kind of the direction that the Metro Council will then send their COO down into. So is it by July 25th, they have a public hearing on a proposed ballot measure for the November 2024 ballot. Or is it something else based on the feedback? Is there another option? Is this not ripe? Is this too traumatic? Do we know enough 3 years in? All of those things are still going to be presented to the Metro Council on July 9th. But July 25th, if they decide they instruct their COO to come back with a referral for a public hearing, that recommendation of language for that ballot measure referral will be presented in a public hearing on July 25th. And so that's a more formal time to participate if folks have thoughts and ideas. It's really late in the game though to make adjustments to a ballot measure. But then if after that public hearing, the Metro Council decides it wants to move forward and actually refer out, the expectations they will refer out on August 1st. There's a deadline for referrals so that you qualify for the ballot in time, and it is like 2 days after August 1st. So this is a very compressed timeline. It's very challenging, but there are a lot of partners who are still talking to Metro staff as they continue to build their recommendation or report back to their Metro Council. So with that in mind, next slide. In thinking about the role that your committee plays, we wanted to ask you some questions so that you could think through this with us and help us as we try to build a broader county perspective in how to approach the ongoing conversations with Metro. So I won't read the questions out to you, but really wanted to get your thoughts and a little bit of conversation with you about this work that we're doing to balance services. And the way I think about it is there's the initial phase one services, temporary shelters, getting people in contact with services, and then we move through multiple phases to eventually into these permanent units. And each one of these phases is an incredibly important part of the continuum of service that we have been building out. And much of the focus of this group is on that phase 3 permanent area. But you know that it takes good tenants to be successful in supported housing. So we're trying to build that through the other phases in these funds. So I'll stop talking, which is rare. But look forward to your thoughts, perspectives, questions, or inquiries.
Don't see any hands online. Just doesn't indicate. I did want to point out though that one of our committee members did have to leave early, so we no longer have quorum. We're not voting on anything according to the agenda, but I want it to be noted.
Just wanted to say that I greatly appreciate this overview. It was very thorough and I find all of this very confusing generally, so it makes a lot more sense now. So thank you for running us through this, with a lot of clarity. Do you mind asking again what the question is that you're looking for us to respond to? Are you looking for us to make suggestions on additional topics to bring up, or I wasn't sure exactly what you were asking the hack group to respond to?
So I think the questions that are on the screen are kind of seed questions for developing a conversation with you about your reactions to this proposal to add this resource into the mix, and what you would be concerned about if that were to happen, given the volatility of the funding, and knowing what it takes to build a capital stack, probably better than the average human.
Thank you.
For me, I would love, just that number 4 question is really one of the key ones. Because we know this could come with a tax reduction. We know we have plans to spend out our full budget. This will mean some kind of reductions to the build system of homelessness that we are building out. So just getting a sense from you all, what are some really core pieces we need to make sure we're bringing to the table that are paramount?
It sounds like you're planning on flexibility in the future so that if funds go down, you know where they need to shift.
That's what we've been
hoping for.
trying to negotiate.
And that's for me, we would need to see the facts of, where the money's getting shifted to and why, and how you feel that is the least impactful to the vulnerable population that you're trying to serve. It's kind of hard for us to know that we don't have that information.
You sound like us in those meetings. So it's really hard for us to understand the impact without us knowing. It becomes a very hypothetical conversation.
Yeah.
Yes, the end, because an income tax is so volatile, it's also, it keeps speaking to us, it keeps coming back to that need for local flexibility. They want, in exchange for flexibility, Metro saying we then want more oversight. So that's the piece that we're trying to create right now.
Don't see any other hands or questions online.
Late hand. I guess a comment or question for Michael. I keep beating this drum, so apologies in advance. It would be helpful, maybe it's in here, if it is, tell me, look deeper. To understand, because a year in, year and a half in, I still am a little wonky with where are all my revenue funnels? Right, in a given year. At some point, some very basic visual, one-page slide would be kind of cool for the layman. To say, here are my expenses, right, but here are where the funnels of income are gonna come in 24, 25, 26. I think would allow me at least to ask better questions. Cause I'm sometimes a bit confused on how do I fund this thing? And what's the changing landscape in the next 2 to 3 years on those funding sources? So does that make sense?
Yeah, we have multiple funds. You have the revenue pool going into different funds, and then sometimes we have.
Yeah,
transfers
but at its
between
core,
the
revenue
funds.
comes from somewhere.
Okay.
And some of it's guaranteed. Or we could ask all the property tax owners in Washington County just to double their property taxes. I think that'd go over great in my neighborhood.
We really don't have property tax.
Yeah, and then I could live here when I moved after I asked that question. But literally, right, there's only so much money coming from so many sources.
Yeah.
And it'd just be helpful to see that. This is $10, this is 12, this is $100, this is $70.
Yeah.
This is at risk. If I vote for a new structure in the funds, I get twice as much, but this 25% is vulnerable, which then impacts all the planning that you're talking about, Molly, on structure and expenses and projects and that kind of thing. So something simple, I guess, would be my comment.
I think if we tied it back to the budget,
Yeah,
that would probably be the best way.
and to me, I've done it for years, budget's a guess. It's a polite word for, this is what I think. And revenues at times are too, but there's some revenue sources that are more sustained, right? There's structural things that have the revenue come in, and then there's windfall stuff. So again, anything like that would be helpful and super simple, right? Not trying to add stuff to your day. Thanks.
It is really complicated. It is really hard to know. I generally like the idea of having some of the funds be for permanent supportive housing. That meets our goal for chronic homeless. We like the idea of a sunset extension. We're a little bit in a holding pattern. Where until we know what will be the negotiated rate reduction. At that point, so this is where we want to bring this to your attention, because there's a little, back to, if there's any, there's potentially public testimony, Metro Council on July 9th.
25th.
Sorry, 25th.
The 9th is just
But-
a work session.
But essentially, to make a long story short, there's not, between the 25th and the 1st, there's not a lot of opportunity for a lot of changes, so. The question is whether you all feel like you want to see whatever the package is that ends up getting referred, and then we come back and see whether it's worth having some kind of response back to maybe our commission, let them know the things that you guys are concerned about or excited about. How about that? But most likely, since we're not having a July meeting, that's why we needed to bring it to your attention now.
Sure.
So I think we can at least email you all whenever we see whatever the recommendation is from Metro, and start that email exchange.
I don't know about exchange.
We can't have a dialogue.
Yeah,
Got it.
doing the email.
We'll just do a one-way correspondence to you all with that language.
Great.
Great, thank you. That is it for today. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to mention before we go?
I did have a thought on the ask for nonprofits to be involved moving forward. I think that goes back to something we talked about a lot of meetings ago, of getting the right people in the right room. And maybe that gathering could be reaching out to nonprofits that you don't already know and have contacts with to further the networking of the community.
Last year, we, we did a forum and there was a lot of emphasis on equity. And I think there might be a good opportunity to think about, moving forward this year about outcomes. Right? There's a lot of conversation about outcomes, but maybe outcomes with a little bit of an equity lens just to tie in, so we don't completely forget about the work that we did last year. It would be nice to tie in.
Thank you both.
Anything else? Hey, Jacqueline, do I need a motion to adjourn? You can't do a motion because. Oh, we don't have a quorum. Never mind. So we're done.
The way to do it,
The meeting goes forever.
yeah, so the meeting does have to close, so this is my suggestion. I suggest that there is so this is an emergency because we don't have a quorum, but we need to close something. So my best guess is this, the HAC members should elevate someone for this meeting as an acting chair to just dispose of the motion to end the meeting.
Hey, Melinda, are you available is Melinda?
Yes,
still-
I'm here. I'm here.
Are you available to close the meeting?
Yes, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
you.
Bye, bye.
Spoken with words. Yes, I am.
Can't do anything.